yourself.
Welcome to Clever Title Pending with your host, Brian K. Morris, independent publisher, freelance hybrid author, award-winning playwright, and former mortician's assistant. Don't send him title recommendations because Brian knows exactly what he's doing. So just sit down and look pretty as Brian K. Morris scrolls through your comments and plays with his mouse. Join him on Tuesday nights at 8 p.m. Eastern, 7 Central, for Evening Pandemonium and Moonlight Madness.
And let the madness begin. Hello, everyone. Welcome to Clever Title Pending for June 9th, 2020. And we have got, I think, a really cool show coming up, and I think you're going to dig it. Something a little bit different, a little bit out of the ordinary. And what we're going to do is we're going to explore writing for games, all right? You know, both tabletop stuff, whether it's RPGs, role-playing games for you noobs out there, see how educational this show is, or supplements, or even board games, whatever. It all has to have somebody writing that stuff, and maybe we will get you guys and gals thinking about another way of looking at writing here. And we see we got people coming in already. Carl Wisman, Dave Noe, Bill Sarn, Amy Hale, Steve Els, Rick Bradley, Sarah, and Morgan Connick. Hello, and yeah, you all figure out who gets what here, okay? Anyway, we're going to unmute our friends here, and we're going to bring them in. And I would like to welcome Dave Woodrum and Dan Smith. Guys, welcome to Clever Title Pending. Glad to have you here.
Thanks for having us.
Well,
thanks.
Thank you for allowing yourself to be had. Anyway, like I said, this is I've explained to these guys it's a little bit loose format here, but I think what I will have each gentleman do is introduce themselves and tell the entire audience how awesome you are. And let's start with Dave, and then we'll work up to Dan here, okay? How's that sound? Oh, oops, I just kicked him out. Anyway, we'll start with I always make one screw up per show, and I like to get it out of the way soon, all right?
That's perfect.
Dear Lord in heaven. Anyway.
That's my whole life.
Yeah, I want to find I want to find this one GIF, and it was like how I would describe most of my shows, and it shows this flood going down the middle of Main Street, and in the middle of it is this giant blue dumpster with flames pouring out of it. You know, and that's pretty much the tone of my show. Let's hit the right button this time, and let's have Dave Woodrum explain how cool he is. All right, Dave, you've got the floor.
Well, we're not going to do in my coolness. I'll just go with Devo's. We're through being cool on that at 47. I'm Dave Woodrum. I'm the owner-operator of Fishwife Games, an independent role-playing game company that primarily markets pretty much everything by electronic media, PDF, and so forth. I've been in the game design industry now for 22, 23 years, 21 years. Started with actually with the Duncan Company, and then on the Dark Quest, and then several little freelance bits, including White Wolf, one little bit, Fantasy Games Unlimited, Monkey House Games, and then also Smith Inc., Dan's company. And pretty much I do game design, role-playing game supplement material, content creation. I also do music, and I've done it for a few different companies. And then I do 3D printing, modeling design, which I'll show a little bit later.
All right, excellent. Cool. Now let's turn to Dan Smith here. And please introduce yourself to our audience, sir.
Well, when I was younger, I used to be Smith. I started in the industry doing illustrations for just about everybody in the 90s except for TSR. So I was freelance for everybody, and I became the unofficial house artist for Steve Jackson Games. for about 4 years, in the mid '90s, something like that. And when I stopped working for them, pretty much, I was working in the computer game industry, and I realized that I should be doing my own games. So I started with a couple of card games. One was Battle of the Bands, another one was King of Crime, and then just I just do stuff. I've written a musical. I've done comic books. I've produced solo games, card games. I've made board games. Basically, if you get something in front of me, I'm going to screw it up. And then meeting Dave is like looking in a mirror, and it's like a weird mirror. It's like an actual mirror. Everything he does, I do, and so when we get together, we just do it twice as fast. And twice as weird. And so we're kind of like a two-headed monster that spans the continent. So it's a wonderful thing.
Well, you mentioned screwing up everything that's in front of you. I feel like we're kindred spirits. Anyway, Carl Witzman, everybody's saying hello to each other. We're going to selectively take some of your comments. Role-playing, I'm on board for this, says Carl Witzman. Hello, Cindy Kep, and hello, Sarah. Great topic. I agree. And Meredith Lawford. And, we got somebody I think maybe knows you guys, Patty Dunford.
Hi, Patty.
Yeah, local.
Excellent. Yeah. And Mina Mirkwood, and she says, "Hi, Dave." And then to be fair, she goes, "Hi, Dan."
Well, hi, Mina.
And we want to welcome everyone on YouTube who's watching us there, as well as the Big River Comic Con page, as well as our own Rising Tide Publications and my own page. And let's see who else. And Cindy kept this one. Brian says Russell Allen, and that's it, says Cindy kept. And let's see. Oh, here we go. Rick Bradley says, Dave, I've worked with this guy. He's awesome.
He has. He's got a couple of 100 lists already with Fishwife. And I also wanted to say Patty is a gamer from my local hometown, and Mina is an artist from my local hometown and very talented.
Very cool. Very cool. And one of these days I'll get my thing done for Fish Wrap. Who knows, in my copious amounts of spare time,
That's my new time.
Yeah, exactly. Bill Siren says, good evening, Brian, guests, and Evermorians. That's what we call ourselves. Sharing the broadcast on the Artwork of Bill Siren page on Facebook, and hopefully the weather tonight will cause no interference. Don't jinx us, dude. But I'm going to watch out for flying cows just in case. If something happens, then something happens, But we've been having storms all day. So let's see. Good evening, Teresa Dunn and Sarah. Sarah would like to know, what kind of music, Dave? Just for gaming or other means of music, and what genres?
So far, most of everything I've done has actually been related to gaming. I mean, as far as professionally, because I have that outlet open. But I've actually been wanting to do an album that is just strictly not gaming, or two, and probably release it on Amazon as an MP3 album. I do a lot of techno. I'll be honest, I'm shameless club music, but I've also do a lot of industrial. And then I've done a lot of experimental that really doesn't defy anything. There's some of my stuff I can show later at some point, probably not on the show, that I've got on YouTube that's just weird, like cat noises and stuff mixed. But industrials, I know that Sarah's an industrial fan. Industrial was actually my love before techno, and I found that the way to do industrial is to take techno, run it through distortion, slow it the crap down, and kind of mess it up a little bit, and you've got industrial.
And who said this isn't the learning place? I tell you. Michaela J says, I heard role play. Yes, you did. And Nick Tockard, who is a game designer himself, says, game design, wonderful subject. He is currently working on an RPG for Hybrids, the Sons of God's comic book. And here we go. Cindy Kep says, I'm planning to turn Animal Eye, which is her brand new novel available on Amazon, not that I'm going to sneak a plug in for it, into an RPG scenario or an independent game. Can you recommend some how-to references?
Got a Dan on that.
Yeah, Dan, you want to start that?
Sure. If you role play, choose your favorite system. Take a look at it. It's all very obvious about what's going on there, and then you look at your storyline, and what's important to your storyline should drive what needs to be in the game. So if it's a very cerebral game, it'll be doing lots of things with intelligences and things along those lines. If it's a very physical game, dexterity and strength and things like that. My best guess is that go with what you know. I mean, you write what you know, game what you know.
Very good. Right. Definitely. And what about you, Dave? Do you have anything to add to that?
The one thing I'll probably add, and I want to just sort of kind of piggyback on what Dan said, was early on when I started trying to emulate role-playing games and make my own, something that I had to break myself from was this belief that because something, an element, a game rule was in another game, that I felt at first it had to be in mine or my game wasn't good enough. What happened was I found that I had a lot of crap that really didn't apply to anything. And it was basically dead statistics. And so one of the things is, like Dan said, ultimately look at what you're trying to emulate. Look at the theme, look at the feel, and go with that. And that's where, even though I do have an unfinished system called Bait, which Dan actually did do the initial icon lettering for, which is a multi-genre, I have found that really in the end, it's almost better to go ahead and write a game based on the particular theme you're doing, even if it's a mishmash theme, because in the end you do, and not bucking GURPS, not bucking Bait, but in the end you do really, I think, have a better game because it's focused just on what you're concentrating on. And you're not trying to add all these elements for everything else.
You're trying to fit the system specifically to your concept. You're not trying to be able to mesh with somebody else's concept. Now, if you want to be able to mesh with somebody else's concept, keep in mind that you want to, keep openings for that kind of thought process. But truly, if you want it to be a unique product, focus on what your product is about and make the rules give that flavor to the players and the game masters, so that way when they're playing the game, they are playing your game, not just a version of somebody else's idea of what your game could be.
Very good. That's cool. That's great advice, both of you. Meredith Logren says, "I'm watching on YouTube, but I'm sharing on Facebook." Thank you, Meredith. You're the best. You're gonna make us famous yet. And I could use it. Carl Wisman says, "Michaela, I'm beginning to think that's not the kind of role playing I usually like." And John D. Hilton says, who is the proprietor of Comics Cubed in Kokomo, Indiana, who carries games there as well. He says, "Finally, a topic I actually know about." He's also a gamer as well. So it's okay, gamers. This is your safe space tonight. And Sarah, techno and industrial. Yes, I'd love to see your work. Well, I'm glad you mentioned that, because if you want to check out some of the stuff these guys do, go to Drive-Thru RPG. Also, check out the crawl going across the screen at the bottom of your screen right now. And check out the work that these two do. How many pieces of work would you guys say you have at Drive-Thru?
Go ahead, Dave.
You go ahead first.
I'll say I have games on Drive-Thru cards. Which also have a lot of things that are not necessarily cards on there. And then and Dave's got his Empire on Drive-Thru RPG. So between me and him, my 20 items and his 4,000 items, there's quite a few things online there.
Yeah, that's great. Yeah, and I was noticing now if anybody's put off by if they get sticker shock easily, I was noticing that a lot of stuff on here is well under $50. Just about everything on there. In fact, I don't even think I ran across anything that was more than $1. And there's a lot. That is really cool. I love that kind of thing. You make it affordable for just about anybody. And writers, this show frequently focuses on writing, as we are tonight. And I definitely recommend. In fact, I've talked to Dave about this before. I think writers should check this out, especially if you're a pantser. That if you write by the seat of your pants and then you're like, well, I'm in this corner here, how do I get my hero out of it? Pull out one of these things, get a pair of dice, roll, and suddenly you've got a new character that could come in and influence the plot. You've got like an artifact that can change the course of your story. So definitely check out Drive Through RPG and check out these guys' work, and also check out the DeviantArt account for SM Think. I think I got that right, and also
Smith Inc. Yes.
Oh yay! Because I cut and paste, so I'm not taking the blame for anything.
No, you're fine. It's good. It's good. It's Smith Inc. One word, but it's ink, like incorporated, but actually ink, like drawing.
Wordplay. I saw what you did there.
Writing.
You clever dog. Anyway, and Sarah says industrial music rocks. And here we go. Rick Bradley, who is a writer himself, asks, what RPG ignited your love for gaming?
Go, Dave.
First, before I say that, because I love the Hawk products, and I just spilled half of them on the floor. These are Dan's cards that are on drive-through cards. They're actually very high quality. I can attest to it. I own some. But getting back to the actual question and quit selling stuff, mine. I mean, there's the obvious one, that I think doesn't even need to be said. About everybody started with Dungeons and Dragons, and I was immediately hooked. The Christmas that I got the red box set, and was like automatically creating characters, and was in all of a sudden trying to write books, and was up to 1 a.m. just writing madly, because all of a sudden this was a product that told me that I could come up with parts of it that I contributed to the world. So that naturally got me started. But I like to promote some of the lesser known games. And so with that, Villains of Vigilantes was very near and dear to me early on. And of course, I have been very grateful, very blessed. Jack Herman and Jeff D has let me write for Monkey House Games. Before that, Scott Bazar let me do some products for Fantasy Games Unlimited, the original home of V&V. But then there was also a lot of others. GURPS was a big influence. That's how I got into Dan's artwork. That and Illuminati New World Order, the card game. But I mean, there's been tons. I mean, there has been just so many tons. And I try to actually, like particularly when I was working on Bait, there was elements of so many different games that were thrown into there. Stuff that I loved. It was kind of like Bill Gates when he made Windows operating system. Let's take everything that we liked and bashed it all together, or so I've been told. So, I mean, I really, it came from the Late Show was a great one that inspired me. Teenagers from Outer Space was a great one. I think me and Dan have a lot of that same wacky, zaniness that it had. I mean, there's just so many out there.
Mm-hmm. Great stuff. Yeah, that last part reminded me of Macho Women with Guns.
Yeah.
If you remember that. I seriously love that game.
Second edition, Greg Porter saw a drawing I had done of my sister as a nun, and he's like, I have to have that. So yeah, second edition, and you see the nun in the front, that's my sister.
Oh, so, neat.
Yeah,
I'll check that out, because I think I've got that downstairs. So, all right, Dan, same question. What ignite? And we'll get the Bill Sartin version now. What was the first game that got you both hooked on gaming growing up? And Dan, your turn.
Well, for me, it was we had Monster Manual, and we had the Player's Handbook, and Dungeon Master's Guide was going to come out in about 3 to 4 months, and we were freaking out, and that was it. And the one that really ignites me on a constant basis is Gamma World First Edition.
Oh yeah,
that one really always, when I look at it, I see an infinity of ideas that can be had with that game. So those are the two. I mean, I love Star Frontiers, all the early TSR stuff. But when I wanted to play other game systems, I mean, like I wanted to play, like, say, Boot Hill or something else, I'd have to relearn a new game system, and I really hated that. When I heard GURPS was coming out, my girlfriend, now wife, bought that for me for Christmas. And when I actually hold that box now, as then, it re-energizes me. It reaffirms what I want in a game where I can do anything I want. I want to make that necromantic gunslinger who is time traveling for the Empire. I mean, I want to make that guy, and I can, and it's okay. It's not like I'm breaking a system or making it not going to work. So those are the big ones. As David said, a lot of old, a lot of smaller games. All the stuff from Bradley K. McDevitt, and people like that. Definitely Jeff D. and his stuff. I love Twerps. That was the first game I taught my son, who was like 6, to play that game. Things like that. So everybody and everything influences. It just depends on how much and when. Because I mean, I'll look at everything, even the stuff I hate. I'll look at it. I'll look at Cinnabar and go, "Oh my God," and go, "That is so cool. I want that." Though, you never know what's gonna ignite you, but I'm so happy that there's stuff out there that does ignite me and everybody else, because as a community, we all thrive from everybody else's successes and even failures. Just being a part of it, is important. And it's a giant hive mind that just furthers our entertainment value as we go farther along. So that's one of the big reasons why I so love being with Dave. It's not working with Dave. It's me, and if me and Dave were in the same room, they'd have to lock it because we'd be out of our minds doing the most wonderful stuff we ever wanted to do. So at least with a slight distance and a slight time lag between us, but just the idea that we can do what we want to do, and it's not even about making any money on it. It's just about doing what we want to do. That makes this industry and this community work for me. It keeps me off the streets. It keeps me out of crime. I'm able to make people happy, maybe, laugh, maybe, enjoy themselves, maybe, but at least doing stuff for me and somebody else likes it, is really what the actual payoff is for me. So
very cool. Very cool. So what are you guys playing these days?
Well, actually, I was going to bring this up. Dana talked about earlier about how we do so much stuff because we have this sort of just same mentality quicker. We've been working on a few projects. One of them is actually a mutant type adventure game, a series of modules that we're actually just running off of first edition AD&D rules. I mean, because everybody's doing it now. The Osric and all. And so basically, we're going to allow you to just completely jump in with your player's handbook, your version of Osric, whatever you're using, and roll with it. But then, like I told him, I said, even though with me it's just a part-time gig, I can tell, like, when I'm not selling stuff, like coming out with new products, I will stop selling the older stuff. And so I told him, I said, Dan, I need to run a couple of days and make some stuff. You want to do it with me? And, like, we put out 11 or 12 new 100 lists together, and I think it was like, 4.5 days?
Was it that long? I thought it was 3.
Yeah, it was like 3. Yeah. We said, let's roll with it. And we haven't fully committed yet, but we actually said, if we could get this down to a fine art and like spend 45 minutes each a day, we could actually put out a new product a day. Because, I'm close to 750 products out right now, and I was like, we could do this over the course of a year, and I'll be easily over 1,000.
Oh, yeah.
And so,
what's nice about it is that, we both can do the same things. So, like, I can have 5 things sitting here, and you can have 5 separate things sitting there. We both do half, swap each other, and we're working concurrently. So, and when you're working on things like, let's say, a 100 list, after about the 30th or 40th thing, you're starting to slow down anyway. Then you throw it to me, and all of a sudden I'm like, oh, well, here we go, and I've got, I'm brand new into it, and so it really, it's almost like you're watching a movie on 10. And it just stays on 10, and it's kind of like the way these are coming out, and I think they're really, really great in that, because I don't think there's any lag time. I don't think there's any moments where you're not getting your dollar's worth, right? I think you're going to get your dollar's worth in every line. And we go from the obvious to the sublime to outrageous to not safe for work to something you weren't even expecting, right? And I think that just one of those lists, if you look at it, would definitely give somebody a jump start if they felt like they were in a brain lock mode, they would look at it and go, "Wait a minute, that's cool," or "That makes me think of this," or whatever. But I think there's enough value in just one of those that we're doing that is going to be of use to anybody. A writer, a gamer, a songwriter. I mean, I could write songs based upon some of the stuff that we've written on there.
And they all sell for $1 or less. 100 less or a one-page download or easy on the ink. And for those that have thought about gaming but don't have, we talk about 100 list and dice. These are a set of percentile dice. And they come with a polyhedral set. And if anybody has questions, how do I get those kinds of dice? One off of Amazon, but just private message me and I'll show you where to get it. Heck, if you live close enough, I'll give you a set. I only have 300 or 400 laying around the house.
And for six-siders, I have about 3,000 or 4,000 six-siders at my house. So if you ever need six-siders, I'm the guy.
I've got 5.5 pounds of dice in the next room. You can't have any of them. Period. Anyway, I worked hard to get those damn things. I love my dice with an unholy passion, which is, I think how you tell real gamers, they can't go to a show without buying a set of dice. So
right.
I was going to say real quick, probably my most favorite 100 list that me and Dan did over the last 3 days is 100 things that you would find in your crazy aunt's house. And it's perfect for any setting. It was just let's think of every crazy wacko aunt, grandmother, family member we have, and let's make a list of what you would find at her house.
That's actually so far has been my actual favorite of all the ones we've done in the past 3 days. Was that?
Oh, very cool. Very cool. That's awesome. I love this. Cindy Kemp says it'd be the bomb diggity to turn her novel now Animal Eye into a computer RPG, but what she knows about programming ends with Commodore 64 Basic and Pascal.
I programmed in Commodore 64, and if I could still have Commodore Basic today, particularly 64 128, I'd take it in a heartbeat.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Well, there's a lot of game engines online that are free that you can make your game utilizing that, and then you can utilize that in putting it online so people can get to it. And it really isn't that hard. It just depends upon how many doors you want to open to get there. I mean, computer gaming is going to take time or people or both, but really what it's going to take for a person to do it is the drive. Do you want to see it like that? It's up to you, and do it for yourself, Make sure that you're enjoying what you're doing, because you don't want to come at the end of that journey and find out that you really didn't enjoy what you were doing and didn't get paid for it. That'd be the worst of both worlds, right? Definitely.
Well, that's the thing. I've got a buddy who he does programming in the original Nintendo.
Yeah,
is always writing books about it, and going on Kickstarter, which we will be mentioning Kickstarter later. So hang on tight, folks, and loosen up your wallets here, okay? Anyway, Sarah says, very cool of the Sons of Gods. Hi, James Harmon, how you doing? And game what you know and game what you brain. Whatever comes to mind, do it. That is so true. Great advice. Yes, on YouTube and Facebook at the same time, being myself as well. We like it when people are versatile like that. Sarah says, I have seen the work of Drive-Thru RPG. I'd love to see more than what I've seen so far. I actually have it pinned to my taskbar.
Thank you.
You've got a fan here. Be
sure to like Dan's Patreon page, because he's putting out a lot of free stuff on it.
Well, yes, I've got tons of stuff that's sitting around here that will probably never see the light of day. And so I thought that would be a good place to do it while I'm also making content. And so a lot of things that we do, on Drive-Thru, I will do side things that I will throw on there as well. And for like $5, after a month's worth of Minecraft for $5 is like negative cents a day, for some of the things that you can use. And pretty much all the stuff on there is copyright free. So if you're a game designer and you want to, put out games, that's what the art there is for. Your $5.
Or if you're a writer, I was going to say, or if they're just a writer, because there's a lot of just general fiction writers on Brian's page. And
if you want to get past that and talk to me about doing a commission, if you're a patron, I treat you more like family than I do like a stranger, so you get a better price, and whatever you need. So I mean, I don't have fans. I have friends. I don't really. I try to keep the fan level down and just have these people be my friends. So that's where I'm at.
Very cool. Very cool. So so you can see I at least got one mention of the Patreon page and hopefully more before the end of the evening. Let's see. Might have to check this out, says Carl Witzman. What do you think, Twitching Bob? And let's see, shot past a whole bunch of great comments here. Sorry. Here we go. And Michaela Jade says, drive-through looks nifty. I might just try it. I think you should. Okay, show of hands, guys. Who thinks Michaela Jade and everyone here should go to drive-through RPG? Okay, it's unanimous. I'm sorry, you don't have a choice now. Democracy rules. And Sean D. Hilton, what is your preferred layout designer, Adobe, Affinity, Publisher, etc., for producing material for drive-through? Who wants to take that one? Not me, not it. Okay.
Oh, God, I was hoping Dan take that one first because mine's a bit embarrassing. We talked about.
I'll smooth it out, and that way you can have the punchline.
Oh, okay.
I do all my stuff in Photoshop, because I'm more adept at that. I mean, I'll draw. If I'm doing drawings, I do it, and I do that by hand, and then I scan it, and then I color it or whatever. If I make my maps, they're all in Photoshop because I can make them right into PDFs, and then it's just a quick jaunt over to uploading them on there. So for me, it's not even a new version of Photoshop, just CS2, with glitches. So.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. Whatever it takes.
Yeah,
and
exactly.
Now. Oh Lord. I admitted to this Dan the other night because when we were talking about actually some battle maps, we're also doing. We're going to be doing a series of city books, basically where you have block streets, and and the actual maps are based on a big battle map that you can print on 11 by 17 printer, and actually, so you can put your miniatures down on the actual area that we're describing. But getting off of that, mine's embarrassing. I actually use Publisher 2000. My original copy was kind of a bootleg because I worked for a municipal company at one time. But I went legit and I bought my own copy of it. So there, disclaimer. Because once I tried it, I said I gotta have this. So I bought my own copy. Right. I actually use Publisher 2000. I've been thinking about upgrading at least 10 years. I actually do some of my mapping artwork in Paint. And we're not, and I use the XP version. And
that's brave of you to admit.
I use bare bones 20-some-year-old programs. A lot of my PDFs, especially where they're small, I don't have to get in a lot of details. They're processed with like Qt PDF, the regular Windows installation. And the reason I'm saying this, not because I'm so darn cheap. I mean, I spend everything on 3D printing, music equipment, all that. But the main reason I want to express that is you do not have to have a state-of-art computer to do the game design that we do.
No.
You don't have to have high-dollar programs. If you really have the drive to do it, you can actually do it and put out a nice enough looking product.
Yep. And even if you don't, you put out that product anyway, you get your fan base who help pay for your next level of upgrade. So it's, it's really all about the person here getting it out there. That's all it's about. Everything else is just applesauce. It's toothpaste. It's just in between.
Yep.
I'm making no sense now.
We'll save you.
Thank you.
No, I say the same thing to a lot of creators. They're like, well, what modern program do I need? Well, I can't make a comic because I don't know how to do Photoshop. My wife, during the my Sharona Miley Cyrus thing that we're going through now, that she taught herself how to do Photoshop on the 2002 version. And she's already gotten a couple of gigs already as a colorist.
Absolutely.
Yeah, so yay, wife. I'm ready for her to start supporting me. But you mentioned Paint. I want to say real fast, there is something called paint.net, and it's slightly more. Have you heard of it?
Yeah, I've used it too.
Yeah, I sprang for the $5 for it. Hey, nothing cheap about me, by God. And that's about my level of sophistication too.
when I was running a system off of Linux, I used paint.net. And the one thing I will add, though, like, for example, I could do the game design on a 15-year-old computer and still be able to do it. Now, but when it comes to, like, where I do the 3D modeling in Tinkercad, Mesh Mixer, other programs like that, I have to have a little bit more state-of-the-art. And then when it comes to the music production, of course, you can run Audacity on about everything, but I just use it for sample editing. When it comes to actually laying out the music, my current DAW or digital audio workstation that I use is Reaper, which started out for free, but now it's $69. But let me tell you, for what you get for 60 some dollars, it's actually pretty amazing. The time stretching effects, where you don't even hardly lose any clarity to the sound. And it can slap a tempo. Like Dan could be saying something in like 90 beats per minute. I can slap it to a 120, and it doesn't even alter his voice hardly. So
Nice.
I mean, stuff like that for 60 some bucks, you can't beat it. But you do have to have a little bit closer to a better system, at least 5 to 8 years old, to be able to run that kind of stuff.
So don't be using the Steam-driven laptops, kids. Just a little bit of professional advice there. Clever title
attached. Something from Gilligan's Island. That'll work just fine.
Yeah, there you go. They could build a laptop, but they couldn't get off the damn island. Couldn't figure out glue on that big hole in the side of the minnow. Yeah. And a clever title pending, a perfect one for you to be a part of Sean D. Hilton. Yes, Sean is a gamer even to this day. God bless him. And Cindy Kemp says GURPS was a trip, especially Heroes and Space. And I think it's a good time to tell everyone, because I know a lot of people will not know what that is. What is GURPS?
This is very old.
It's a generic universal role-playing system. It is a I wouldn't say bare bones, but it's the skeleton. It's a skeleton role-playing system that you can add any genre to, and they've made lots and lots of books of all different genres and stories and books that have been out. But what it is that you can play a fantasy type Dungeons and Dragons game, and if you want to switch over to, let's say, an Old West style game, it's the same rules, so you're not using the same. You're not relearning new rules, and you can also have characters move across the different worlds seamlessly. So you can have a campaign that can run through 5 or 6 different genres, and still not completely freak everybody out trying to relearn new dice pools and what kind of dice is that? D30s and whatever. It's just 3d6 and go man go. It's simple as hell. It's as detailed as you want it to be, or it's as light as you want it to be. And I play a cinematic game, so it's very, very light. Some people play very realistic games where you crunch in the numbers, but the numbers work out for you, and they work across space, superheroes. Maybe not as great as superheroes. Okay, a lot of people say that other games are better, like mutants and masterminds and all that, and I tend to agree. But I mean, if I'm using that one system, fine. I mean, it's no different than Magic. It's just a big punch, right, or something.
Right. Exactly. Yeah. And
classic Smith art here.
There you go. I'm going to fill the screen with you here. Hold on.
Oh no!
Yeah, there we go.
Robot thing. And then you go over to the next page, if I'm getting it right. Then you have like the typical archer.
Right.
And the whole book is like that. I mean, it's psionics, it's cyberpunk, it's
martial arts,
Illuminati's, it's fantasy. I mean, actually, this page right here is full of classic Smith art. The kind of stuff that really got me into Smith. And I'm sorry, I'm getting a little drunk here. It's just a mixture of everything. And that's pretty much what GURPS is. It is literally everything. And like I said, I mean, there is times I do prefer, specific systems for certain games, particularly if I want to go rules light. But, I mean, GURPS did a very fine job of incorporating practically everything into the fold.
I have to agree. I still have copies of my old stuff from the 80s, like The Prisoner, based on one of the greatest TV shows ever done. Mina Mirkwood asks, what's been your favorite themes to build an RPG around?
Dan.
Oh, me?
Yeah, we'll let Dan. You pawned this off on Dave way too many times. I've got to
Okay,
restore
okay.
the balance.
All right, my turn. Well, for me, it's what interests me, and the thing is, like, my problem is everything interests me. So I sat down one time. I was helping a friend of mine shoot a wedding. I was an assistant photographer, and I was talking to some people at this wedding, and they asked me what I did when I wasn't shooting weddings. And I said, well, I design games. And they're like, well, wow. I said, well, somebody has to, right? You don't just, like, grow off a tree. And I said, I could design a game about, attending a wedding. I could do it in like 10 minutes. And she goes, really? And so I just laid out for her off the top of my head what we're looking at and how it could be done in a game. And she was absolutely freaked out that, that could happen. And so, for me, I'm a huge music fan. So that's why my first card game was Battle of the Bands, where you start your own rock band. I did a card game on King of Crime, which is being the crime boss of a 1930s gang, which is like Battle of the Bands, only bloody and different. And because those things interest me. I took a Time Life book and made it into a game. That was what it's the kind of thing I did. For me, fantasy is always a big one because everyone loves fantasy. It's a knee jerk for anybody who's played games. It's like that was their teething ring, into playing games was fantasy. So fantasy, post-apocalyptic is a huge one for me. I love West because Old West is like the pre-apocalyptic, setting. It's same setting. It's just that you have less tech. So that's just anything for me. What about you, Dave?
I'll say first off, it was kind of funny that you talked about like, hey, you can do anything, make a game. Yesterday there was some comment about something that was on Facebook, and I said they were talking about like coming up with crazy ideas, and I said
divorce.
Yeah, divorce lawyers, the collectible card game. And I was like, oh my God, Dan could produce this.
You and I could do that in 3 days.
Yeah.
We can have the basic set down. It would just take a month for me to do the art.
Where you're two competing divorce lawyers trying to get the better deal for your client. I mean,
exactly. And not only that, let's say it's not just that one divorce. Let's say it's a series of divorces.
Yeah.
Right.
And say like my law firm's trying to put your law firm out of business. I mean, we could actually run this to a game.
Well, let's say what it is that like I'm having an affair with your wife, and so that actually can have a modifier to something happens within the court action. You never know, right? So just make this game.
Yeah.
Do I need to leave you two alone for about 10 minutes? You'll get this thing written out. I'll just vamp for time.
We do this. This is why our wives don't allow us to get on the phone very often. But no, I mean, with me, I've got to admit, post-apocalypse has been a love for me for a while because of the flexibility. And because, I mean, the fact that, like, particularly when I make lists of it, I can use regular modern household items in the list. And you can use regular household concepts. I will say that it can become a little bit more complicated, like Dan says, because you can start to drift into too much realism. So the mutant apocalypse stuff, which we've been kind of playing around with, is a lot more fun because it's basically science fantasy. You don't have to explain nothing. You don't have to explain why canned goods are still good after 50 years.
They just are.
They fixed that in 2025, so we were good. So.
Yeah, because we actually came up with a crazy timeline to explain everything. But I mean, I like it. I like fantasy, but I got a little burnt out with fantasy because during my Dark Quest days, I was coming out with stuff all the time. And there got to be a point after several years, I said, if I look at another dragon or elf, I'm going to puke. And so I did get burnt out on fantasy for a while. I'm starting to ease back into it. I liked superheroes, but I don't know. I kind of found after a while I had some limits there. Just sort of a writing aspect. I started seeing my cracks showing pretty quick.
Well, I find, with superheroes, all the different superhero games, what it really boiled down for me is that I want my fighters and my superheroes to be able to fight Captain America, to fight Batman, to fight Hellboy. Okay, so I'm always going to gravitate to the established comic book game systems only because I can do that. I mean, I love Villains and Vigilantes to death, but unfortunately, I'd have to build the Marvel universe for me to fight the Marvel universe. And it's so much easier. And being the elderly man that I am now, I don't have the time to do that. So it's for me. That's why I sort of stay away from supers unless we're playing those particular systems. So, but as a game designer, I've made card games of superhero things, and they're fun as hell. But the thing is I can make cards here for myself that I won't get sued for because no one's ever going to see them. So I can make my Batman card, my Green Lantern card, or whatever, and work with it. I could just never put it out in the world because I don't have the rights to do that. I don't want to put out the Blue Lantern, or the Moody Ring as opposed to, whatever, because no one wants to play a 99-cent version of those guys anyway. So.
Mm-hmm. That makes sense. And I'm glad to hear you guys talking about superhero games because my gateway was Heroes 3rd Edition. Or Champions 3rd Edition.
Yeah.
We were part of a group. We actually played that system for over 20 years.
Wow.
Mostly because 4th Edition sucks so badly. That was terrible.
Seems like 4th Edition is the death knell for a lot of things.
It is, yeah.
Yeah, and it's funny because in comics, 4 I've noticed is kind of a magic number because Avengers number 4, Captain America shows up. Defenders number 4, First Valkyrie. The Green Arrow joins in Justice League of America number 4. There's so many of these, that have significance around 4, whereas like Fantastic Four, it's every issue. But anyway, that's another thing. But yeah, that 4th edition was just. That was also a design nightmare for me because I think it was when Photoshop was really starting to get popular and somebody noticed every effect that was in it, so they decided to use every effect on every page.
Yeah.
That was a freaking eyesore. But it's not an eyesore. It's Rick Bradley's question. What RPG rule set do you find the easiest to write supplements for?
Whichever role-play game you play. Right? I mean, right? Whatever is what's going to be easiest.
That's true.
For me, it's 1st edition AD&D or 1st through 3rd edition GURPS. Not 4th edition, but those are ones that I know by heart. The systems, how it works, and how to make stuff on the fly with no muss, no fuss. So in my viewpoint, it's whatever you are comfortable with.
All right, Dave, what's yours?
Well, first off, a lot of Fishwife game stuff is actually system generic. Most 100 list, everything, even a lot of the bigger products is system generic. Me and Dan, our city books will be system generic, and I do that because one of the things is I found that after many years of writing, there's a lot of core concepts that are universal. And you can talk about it and give a lot of flavor for the game master, and all he has to do is just throw some basic stats in. And a lot of game masters will have, they'll have a basic craftsman stat, they'll have a basic thug stat. So why limit? And one of the things that I think where Dan picked up on it really quick, what I was doing, is because me and him both share a love for both Dungeons and Dragons and GURPS. And like I told him one night, we was working on a project, and I said, when we talk about gold coins and silver coins, let's call them coins, not pieces, and kind of separate that from the D&D, right. And then distinguish it particularly as a more universal. Of course, he's like, yeah, good idea. Because he knew exactly what I was talking about immediately because he comes from GURPS, basically. And so my thing is about it, I actually, a lot of times, if I can write it for system generic, I'll write it for system generic first. I'll use real world statistics. I'll look at stuff in feet. I'll look at stuff in, numbers, percentages. Because you could say, like, for example, you could actually create a potion, system generic. You could say, gives a 50% chance of not being affected by an illusion spell. Well, that right there is an actual game stat that would transfer from GURPS, though you'd have to use the full polyhedral set of dice, but no big deal. or D&D or any other company, or any other game product. So I try to stick a lot with system generic, but to kind of make the story short, if I was to pick two game systems that's personally easier for me, though first edition has been kind of proven easier than I thought it'd be, the two that I would probably pick would actually be Dungeons & Dragons 3.5, or because that was the era, the 3.0, 3.5 was my coming of age, and that was what I worked on. Or I would pick probably Villains and Vigilantes 2.1, the revised edition. But both because those were two game systems as a professional that I had to learn and I had to apply.
Right.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that makes sense. Russell Allen says, my favorite RPG is Whips and Handcuffs. Oops, wrong role playing. I don't know how these people get in here. And Ted Davies Artistry. Hello, Ted. Hello, gentlemen. Where do you see RPG going into the future? Paper and dice versus a mouse and VR?
Well, for me, it'll always be paper and dice because when the power goes out, I can still game.
Good answer. How about you, Dave?
As much as I really need to start producing 100 lists and stuff on these virtual, like Astral and all these different virtual PDF role playing, for people that play online. To me, it's the same as Dan. It's paper and dice, but it's not just because of the power, although that was my selling angle for Exiles of the Wicked Maze. It's the roguelike. You can play when the lights are out.
Right.
The thing is about me is, like, for example, like where I 3D print, like design my own miniatures and 3D print them and stuff. I can't get used to this whole mirror image thing. But the thing is about it, the touch, having the miniatures, rolling the dice, and then also just that interaction, the stench of bean dip, I'm going to eat these potato chips later. There's a certain sensation of sitting around the table, pulling out toys that you bought at the Dollar Tree and turning them into like monsters on the battlefield, watching your D20 roll off the edge of the table and go somewhere behind the couch. You can't get that experience through online gaming.
There's not going to be an online cat going to walk across the game table.
Yeah, I was going to mention that. Yes. Well, for a lot of people, I know for myself, it was, for those of us who are socially awkward, it's a great way to have a real social life. Right. That I think a lot of people just don't realize, especially the paper RPG thing. That's where I met my wife. So it's worked out for me. So I'm kind of prejudiced towards that myself. And besides, you can't collect dice if you do everything online. So there. And dice are what, that's what real gamers do. Right. I'll make that statement. I'll live with it. Anyway, send your hate mail to risingtide.pub and see if I care. Anyway, Sarah says, is creating games like gaming in and of itself? Hoping that question makes sense. I think it does. Gentlemen?
You want to go first, Dave, or you want me to go?
You go ahead.
Okay. What I do is whenever I create, I create a lot of card games. And the reason why I create card games, I don't know why, but maybe because there's more artwork that I have control over. But with card games, what I do is if I sit down with a genre concept or a story concept, I always try something different. Like I'll put a modifier on it, to screw me up. Kind of weird, huh? Like I did something. I wanted to see if I could make a card game that comprised of one card. Okay, and I started off with a regular size card, and I really couldn't do anything that had any lasting game potential with that. So I made that card bigger, and it finally ended up being a 5x7 card. And what it is I have what's known as a 5x7 dungeon, and on one card, on one side has the rules and a map of where the adventure takes place, and the other side has the story of the map and has the character you play within that story. And the story has some variable moments that happen when they're kind of like, just like that. And what happens is you can play that game in about 5 minutes. You can play it a couple of times and have various different outcomes in it. If you survive it, you can take the same character, grab another 5x7 card, and play that adventure. And you can have a whole campaign going across all the different adventures.
Nice.
So my concept was to make a card game that was just one card, and so that's how I made that game.
Very cool.
How about you, Dave? What'd you do?
Well, I will say that the first answer, back in the day when I was first playing around with Villains and Vigilantes, the thing that I found with it was character creation was the most fun part of the game. And I'm not putting down the game, but it was because it was all random, fly by the seat of your pants. You randomly rolled up all your powers, and then you had to make that work together. So if you rolled up flame projection and water breathing, you had to make that work, along with teleportation. But V&V, I will credit, really pushed me into developing, because it made me actually have to sit back and think. But really making the games, if you don't, there's some projects I do that I really don't enjoy as much. But like Dan said, and particularly mine, Dan is a little bit more of a full-time professional in this. I'm, part-time. I do mental health as a day job. Isn't that scary? I do mental health. I could be your caseworker. But
Gentle, thou art black.
But my thing is, if I can't have a sense of fun or a game like it, I don't do it. I've turned down projects because I'm like, I'd be like secretly, I hate your concept. I see this as a tedious task, and I'm not going to do it. Now, I will tell you, Dan pushes me. Like, we're working on these city products right now, and this is my statement to him. There's going to be a writer's strike pretty soon. What he likes to do is we're doing a cross where a lot of times the writer comes up with an idea and the artist is then the one that has to do the tedious job of doing what the writer's vision is. Right. We actually naturally had this concept at it for years. Why don't the artist actually run the show and let the writer work around it? We're actually doing that right now. But Dan will come up with these buildings that are teensy tiny, and then he'll put big shop, like distillery or something. And the latest one that he did and I'm giving away a little bit of a product idea that's coming out.
The L bar.
Yeah, he did a tavern. He did a tavern. I haven't wrote this yet. He did a tavern, Brian. I swear the thing is an L shape. It's 5 foot wide on its one side, and then one side it goes probably about 30, 40 feet. And he wrote tavern right beside of it, and I'm like,
yeah, wouldn't you?
Yeah, I'm like, what the hell are you doing?
We asked me, and I had to back that up, and I went, oh, it's just it's just an outside bar. You just walk up and get like a cabana, you get your drink, and you walk away.
Well, you gave it away. I was going to actually say, but you have to know how I'm going to actually work this. You got to buy the product. But he actually told me, he said, Dave, you can do this. You could do it like this. And I'm like, darn you, just when I thought you lost your mind.
But you have to understand that I had no idea it was like that, because I'm sitting down I'm burning through this stuff, right? I'm just creating stuff off the fly, which is patently wrong. But if you're calling on it, I'm going to tell you how to work it, so it's going to be okay.
But it's actually fun that way. Now, there's going to come a point I'm eventually going to show up at his house with the sign that says 15-foot wide minimum spaces. but the thing is about it, he's actually forced me to flex and get out of my linear thinking, of doing over and over again the atypical leather worker shop, the atypical tavern, the atypical, blacksmith shop, by doing the crazy things. And Dan, I love you. Don't get me wrong on that.
I take this all as positive reinforcement of my mental.
Yeah, he's actually pushed me to think out of my shell, and because he knows, Dave, you're going to do it, and it's going to be legit.
Well, I know that you're as mental as I am, and if you didn't come up with that concept, I can come up with that concept, but I know that you can come up with that concept. I know you can take the ball and go to the end zone, but the thing is it's the end zone you weren't expecting, and that's what I think is wonderful about our products, is that because I am mentally unstable, and you have the rights to utilize it in stability. That we're gonna come up with items and products that will push the concept of what a game master is thinking about, because you can get regular stuff all the time.
Yeah.
Everyone will give you regular stuff. We're going to give you stuff that sounds like, well, what if this guy only had an area that was 40 feet long and 5 feet wide, and he had a shitload of bottles of beer? What is he going to do, right? And he's going to make a tavern out of it, and that's what real life tweaking happens within a game, and it gives the flavor of real desperation, of real concepts and consequences that you can put into a game that is interesting and actually is story pushing. The story of that bar right there, that sounds like a major place as a game master that I would want to utilize, because it has such a different flavor and a different vibe about it than a normal tavern, because you're outside on the street with everybody else. The whole tavern trope is thrown on its ass, because now you're in the streets. Now you're drinking publicly. Is that okay? I don't know. As a game master, you say whether it is or it isn't. So it's
To give the secret away, I went to bed that night thinking, "Oh God, Dad's really pushing me." And by the time I got up the next morning, I told him. He said, "I love it." So I was like, "Okay, good work." I called the place the Slab, and of course it's being worked because it's based big long hickory slab is the serving bar.
Right.
This guy is basically a rough and tumble tavern owner. The place is right across from a thieves guild, if that gives you an idea of the side of town. There's prostitutes right next door. And the thing was about it, his bar was so rough that one night a Rage Wizard burnt the thing down. And he pretty much got up mad. He said, "I'm going to rebuild, but you know what? I'm sick of these people trashing my place up. So I'm going to basically just build a building big enough for me to stand in. I'm going to have the alcohol carted in every day. So that way, if they try to steal it, they're not going to get much. And I don't care if they have a place to sit down. I don't care if they have a place to get out from under the rain. So he basically throws some old busted barrels out there. It's like, you want seats? Fine. You trash it, then you don't have nothing to sit on till you get And this is a guy that basically, like, I hate you. If you want a drink, if you want something to eat, I will serve you, but I don't care if I ever see you again. So basically, we made the bartender at Moss Eisley Spaceport Cantina, in a fantasy realm. Like, I hate you people. Here, buy something. Go away.
Right, and that's what's nice about working with Dave, is that we really are sharing a brain. We do see things off kilter, maybe not the same off kilter, but still off kilter. And so when something comes up like that, it may seem like a bump in the road, but we'll make it into a mountain in the road and make it like a point of interest, So that's what's nice about that.
Well, I'm listening to this idea of the L-shaped bar, and I'm in, if I were a GM, if I wanted to take that concept myself, I would have like the COVID 19 BC, sort of thing going in the little town where the adventuring party has to go in, and they've been told you have to go to the social distancing bar, and you see this L-shaped thing. It's only 5 feet wide, and they're like, it can't be that one. It just cannot be that one. So you guys are inspiring me. My God, I got to find a group again. And now this next question, I almost hate to give it. Yeah, exactly. So just take it with you. Get the hell out of here. Yeah, I can see that now. Now I almost hate to let you guys answer this one, because I know this is kind of a variation of the question that anyone who has met a D&D player dread asking after the first time. This is like a variation of the tell us about your character thing. I will be keeping you down to 2 minutes on this one, though, rather than 4 or 5 days. Of course, Rick Bradley says, of course, D&D was many, many people's first game. Which D&D character of yours is most memorable?
Well, mine is a character called Doran Twinkiehead III. He was a dwarven lord. He and his friends got into blood, went into hell, grabbed succubuses and type 5 demons, made them fall in love with them, and then he sired weird children that became the next generation of player characters. That was the guy I remember.
Lovely. Dave?
Real quick, my two are split. First edition AD&D was a very flamboyant illusionist named Hallucitor, and then for 3.5, it was a ranger named Argo Buckbane, which I actually had as an alternate name from Facebook for a while.
I love it. I love it. And I don't remember any of my old D&D characters, but I played Hackmaster for a number of years. My wife ran a game, and my character was Damn It All, who had taken the disadvantages of having only one eye, and was one of his arms was missing, and he was a swashbuckler. And one of the other players called him Damn It All, the one-armed, one-eyed wonder. And the other one was one time at Gen Con, I using Hackmaster because it's a little more loose than D&D. I was playing a half-orc bard.
That sounds like Motley Crue, right?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, and the GM just looked at me and said, "I am killing your character before the end of the day." So he didn't. Anyway, now Sarah is asking, I think, a beautiful question here. This is, she doesn't know it, but how profound this is. Sarah asks, I realize there's more that goes into creating games, but I wonder how much gaming happens on the fly and in planning, etc., like gaming, and the laughter that happens or how serious it has to be. I think that's describing role-playing gaming right there, especially the social aspect of it.
Yeah, and also in creating the games, it's kind of like anything that you work at. It's like a camera. You're out of focus, you're out of focus, you're in focus. So you find out where your parameters are, and what's going to work. You may find something way off kilter, and you go, that's going to stay in the game because that's really a defining moment in this game and this game engine I'm making here. I want to make sure that the explosive, gas is going to be, a must for every character. Who knew, right? So a lot of on-the-fly stuff always does make it into the final edit of whatever you're doing, as long as it really helps to reinforce the concept of what your game is about. I mean, with Battle of the Bands, one of the most important things I wanted to have there was what it was like to really be in a band. I mean, I've been in a band, I know what the music business is like, and when I was finished with the game, I had friends of mine who had been in bands and in music business, and what made it work for me was that they said, this game, even though it's bizarre, is right on the nose about what it's like to be in the band, right? And that really meant a lot to me, meant a lot to me. But a lot of stuff that was in there was very on the fly as I was making it, just knowing what I know, because I'm working from what I know. But there were things in there that are basically jokes that do occur in the music history, but it helped defines the game. And so when you play the game, you actually feel like you're in a band. You actually feel the pressures of other band members in your band, and you actually, I don't know, I get a sense of being in that world playing that game. I've played a lot of other games where I've not felt like I was in that world based upon their game engine. They can say all the pre-words they want in there, but if the game does not reinforce the concept of what it's trying to be, like let's say riding slugs in the desert, if I don't get a point in that game where I feel like I'm riding a slug in the desert, that game has failed. So and a lot of times things are made on the fly, are very important factors. The last thing that went in that game before it went to print, and it was like the last thing, it was like the night before, I had something in those cards called hit singles, and they gave you points to win. And I thought, well, they just sit there and they just give you points to win. Can't they do something else? And I thought, wait a minute. If you are playing a gig, if you're at a gig and that band plays your favorite song, you're like, with the lighter, it's a positive thing. So I made it so that the hit singles will also help you during your band when they're playing in a gig. So if you had a hit single, the people know it, and that gives you more power when you are playing at your gig in somebody's garage or whatever it is. So, but that was like a last minute, thing that was on the fly that I was like, wait, and it's one of those key moments in the game that really feels like it's a true moment. So
nice.
Dave.
Dave?
I think a lot of things with games do happen on the fly, and that's why Fishwife Games makes a variety of 100 lists for the game master, so he can roll up stuff on the fly as needed.
You are good, man. Good.
Drive through RPG. Now, seriously, that's why I do so many 100 lists, and that and the fact that they seem to sell better than anything else I do. Because there is so much on the fly. Because this is role playing, you can't pigeonhole characters. You can't lead them by the nose. If you do that, it ceases to be the game. And honestly, at that point, you might as well just be playing like Mount Blade Warband, Diablo, whatever on the computer.
Yep.
Because if you take away that ability for the people to interact with each other, to come up with their own solutions, you've killed the game concept itself.
Spontaneity. That's something that's really important in game mastering a role-playing game. If you don't, if it's linear from A to B to C, you're being railroaded without any chance of having your character have a say in the storyline. But when you have things that like the list that you make give you these moments that surprise the game master, because if the game master's not playing, you're not having a good time. So everyone contributes to the story, and that's really what we're here for. The rule system just gives you a framework, but it's really all about the story you're creating. This movie you're creating at the end of the evening becomes this really wonderful thing that you've participated in, that you've had a hand in creating, and not being led by the nose because someone had a predetermined ending they wanted to hit.
Mm-hmm. That's true. That's true. Andy Shaggy Cordy, glad you're here tonight, sir. Do you prefer to create characters that equally balance out the characters, or do you prefer to write characters that will cause them to think or do things interesting, differently, rather, in an interesting way, I'm sure? In other words, do you create characters to screw up your GM, or do you want them to be a valuable part of the party and not have to worry about getting an arrow to the back? You're being voluntold again.
I keep starting off. You start off.
I'll be quick about it, I promise. A lot of the characters that I create for adventures, particularly this one, I will usually try to do hooks in place to where they have a need. And this occurred, I've had two great dungeon masters in my time. Mike Walton was the first, which I'm now going to promote his book, The Horror Comic Never Dies. Look for it on Amazon for Mike Walton. I'll talk a little bit more about that later if we have time. But David Ford was another local who was a game master, and he used a patron at the first level of one of our adventures who was a spice merchant that had a need to take care of a situation. And then after that, he decided to keep that character around. And it came out of a dungeon magazine, little adventure. That character to me was probably one of the coolest characters we ever had because he always had a job for us to do, or he knew a buddy that needed a favor done. And he was kind of a neutral guy. I mean, he was a little bit on the good side, but he didn't care to get his hands dirty. And that really clicked for me as a designer. I thought, rather than the villagers just being these honks that just walk up and walk up and down the street and wave at you, make some use. And they don't have to be evil. It doesn't have to be, I kind of hate to say that was one thing about the village of Hamlet. Some of the most influential people in that village were evil. I'm like, have those people have a need for you. You're a hero for a reason. It doesn't always have to be because you saved the princess or saved the village from the dragon. It could be that you're the one that supplies the bar, with manicore meat, or something. Give a reason.
Yay, manicore meat.
Yeah.
It's the other white meat.
Right. For me, if I'm creating a character, or if having characters being created in a game to play against the characters, really what it boils down to is that I really don't want my characters to be optimized. I don't want a character that's going to be looking forward so that he gets to that moment where he's rolling these dice at that level to do this amount of damage, to do that. At that point, we're just playing a spreadsheet. What I want to play is I want to play a guy who has one hand, right? and he's going through life, and he's doing the best he can, and we make it through the adventures with this one hand. But he does enough work and does enough of the right things for the right people that at the end of an important moment for him, like let's say he's helped the dwarven people, reroute the underground river so it doesn't destroy them. It was something as not battle oriented, right, but was important in the story. And they go, you know what? We're going to give you something. We're going to give you a clockwork hand. And because in my world, dwarves are that kind of people, they made him a hand that had a key on it. So now he had a hand that would work, and he'd wind the key. And he became the guy with the hand. He became a mythical figure in that world because of the hand. But he worked for that hand. It wasn't given to him. It wasn't expected of him. He wasn't looking down the road thinking, I'm going to get that hand, right? But it was a moment that made that story become an important story for me or that character or whoever for the rest of their lives, right? And so for me, that's a character is like a good character in a movie or in a story. They have their movement through the story and how they work the story, and they change the story and like this, but it's because of who they are, and what they want and what they don't want, and all those things that are all character traits, not modifiers that get us to where we want to be in a way we weren't expecting. So equally balancing out the characters. People come to my game and go, I've got a chain gun and wings, and God has put his thumbprint on my forehead. I'm like, bring it on, baby. I'm a game master. I got somebody for you. No big deal. Not even like antagonistic, but first level, 20th level. Doesn't matter. We're all gonna have a good time. You're not trying to beat me. I'm not trying to beat you. We're trying to create this wonderful story. So the idea of having characters that are out of sync and all that, they're never out of sync because it's always in control, even when we're out of control, because we're going to get where we want to go, and it's going to be a wonderful ride. That's what role-playing design is all about. That's what role-playing gaming is all about. That's why for me, as an entertainment value, it beats everything because you have a stake in it. I mean, you can sit back and watch a movie, you can listen to music. If you're a musician or an actor, you're actually participating. But as a normal plebe like we are, role-playing at a table with people beats everything because you have a stake in it. It means everything to you. Okay? And if it means everything to you in the way where you're like, I'm not trying to beat everybody or win. I'm just trying to, do what my guy's going to do, the best of his ability to make it happen for him and everybody else. That's what the value of what we do is. It's a real social experiment that, for the most part, succeeds unless it's like a cookie. There's never really a bad cookie unless you're really trying to make a bad cookie. You get the ingredients wrong, you pour marinara sauce in there, whatever you're really trying. Yeah, it's bad. But just a regular cookie is still a great cookie because it's a cookie, right? That's what role-playing is. Same deal. I mean, there are bad ones, but even the most mundane role-playing can still be great. And the great ones are things that you go around telling people years later, oh my God, let me tell you what happened, just like being in a game store. Some guy starts talking about I fought the vampire. You're like, oh God. But then you got to realize, but he fought the vampire. But he fought the vampire. Let's hear how you fought the vampire. And if it was a wonderful story, then let's hear it, right? That's what we're making, wonderful stories. I'll shut up.
No. I was just sitting there reflecting. I was like, oh God, yeah, that time. No, what Dan said though about having a stake, it's like what I said earlier. That's what clicked for me when I was 9, 10 years old and got the red box. I'd heard of D&D. I was more enamored by my next door neighbor's little miniatures at that time. So that's all I already knew of D&D. Oh, you get cool toys if you play this game. But as soon as I started reading, it was like mind blown. I was like, oh my God, I have a stake in this. This evolves around what I create,
right? Not
me just buying in, and that was what started me. I mean, granted, when I was a teenager, I wanted to grow up to be a rock star. That never happened. But the one thing that did happen the whole time was I was tinkering around with game concepts. Usually when I was in class and I was supposed to be paying attention, but I was tinkering around with game concepts.
Always do that tinkering in a math class, because when the teacher comes over, you go, look at, I'm working on math. What?
Yeah, that's what min-maxing is, right?
All right.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, and I'm listening to this and I'm thinking also, video games have their place, but you only succeed in those by trying to guess what the programmer wants you to do.
Right.
Whereas you could take 10, like we could take everybody who's watching this show right now and divvy them up into groups of 6, and Dan can run one scenario and Dave can run the same scenario, and
Right.
with 2 different groups you're going to get 2 different outcomes. It is like improv theater. It is truly interactive and always unique.
Right.
So if we haven't sold any role-playing games by the end of this evening, you people have no human soul. Sean D. Hilton says, with no Gen Con and no Origins, would you expect to see an uptick in sales as people look around for new stuff that they won't see in person? Or do you think people will just hold on to those dollars from now? I think that is a pretty profound question, and it's I think it's true of a lot of publishing concerns. And since Dave's just going to wind up answering anyway, what do you think, Dave?
I'm sorry. I really don't see a huge. I mean, I will say that usually the weeks of Gen Con and Origins, I will see a slight decrease in PDF sales. But then I also see that decline, like right when school starts back at the beginning of the year. Christmas waivers, sometimes it's actually better around that time. Might see a little bit, but it really doesn't. I've got to say I'm blessed. It really doesn't affect me either way for the most part.
Okay. All right. Dan, what about you? What do you think?
I mean, for me as a publisher, with no conventions and all that, I imagine the big publishers will have a certain amount of problem. But I think what it is that, like anything, if it's something you want, you go out and find it. You got the internet. People have their ears to the internet. Everybody has friends who knows what's going on. I mean, I get Kickstarter prompts all the time by people I follow. They go, "This is happening," and I would never have known until someone said that. Oh, that's happening. I think I'll get that, or I think I'll support it, or I think I'll, ignore it. But I think that, especially under the circumstances that we're all under right now, I think it's a good time, especially for individual publishers, smaller indie publishers, to have things out there, especially at the price points that are I'm seeing out there. For people to get their gaming Jones taken care of, or even just start into gaming. There's plenty of ways of getting what you need to do what you want to do. You can play online. You don't have to have people at your house. So I see a modification, but I don't see a real downturn unless, of course, you're like Games Workshop and you had something that was going to be a real big thing that you're going to sell at conventions and you want to show people, and that was your important thing. But then there's YouTube, so Lord knows, people know what they want, and if what you got is what they want, there's not really stopping them, right? So right. I think at this point in time, I think it's 6 of one, half dozen the other.
That's a good question. I know as a book publisher and a comic publisher, hasn't hurt me a bit.
No.
I let people know I've got the product. People need entertainment. That's why we got Zoom. That's why we got Facebook rooms now. It's an impediment, I would think, but especially for us, a smaller level creator, it's just I think it'd be a matter of promoting your work and sharing your excitement to people.
Right.
The end of editorial. If anyone has a contrary opinion, that's nice. Anyway, Rick Bradley says, hardest supplement you've worked on.
I would say Lensman, GURPS Lensman, only because I didn't have the background on it. I didn't know anything about E. Doc Smith stuff. Sean Barrett, who wrote the book, was absolutely wonderful in getting me up to speed on that. I was a big pulp reader, but I'd never gotten into that stuff. I had read Edmund Hamilton's Captain Future. Yeah, Captain Future, right. Read his stuff a lot. But I never got into Lensman. So for me, getting up to speed on what things look like and all that, a little different.
All right.
I'll say for me, I mean, there's been some, but Lost Prehistorica with
Yeah.
Dark Quest. This was kind of like my passion for Isle of Dread, and so I led this project up and wrote about 2/3 of it. And of course, it was a toolkit of dinosaurs and everything for fantasy. Well, we were writing it for Dungeons and Dragons 3.0 at the time. Well, right midway through production, right after I'd finished all the monsters, because I was one of the few people that could do the monster stats in Dark Quest family. Because if you remember, if you ever did monster design for 3.0, 3.5, it was very complicated. It was actual mathematical formulas. Everything connected to other stats. It's none like, with first edition, where you do pretty much what you want, you roll with it.
Right.
The thing was about it was, right after I finished, they changed to 3.5. And with that, the dinosaurs and the prehistoric beasts were under the monster category of beasts, and they were dropped back to animals. Now, in one aspect, it made perfect sense, and it resolved a lot of headaches. The problem was, though, the beast stats were actually different than the animal stats. And since everything fed off of each other, I had designed probably like 20-some 30 like dinosaurs, monsters that I had to go back and recalculate.
Hmm.
And the purpose of recalculating, I had to try to mentally, as I was going down and re-entering all the numbers, trying to make sure that I didn't slip and think, oh, I'm 2 lines down, and that this was correct. I mean, it was a pain.
It became work.
Yeah, and simply because the one project that I happened to be working on was probably most affected by the designation of where they took all the prehistoric animals and reassigned them.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, at least it happened while you were doing it, because you would hate to have that happen right after you put the book out.
Exactly, and I'll give a good point of that. I think probably one of my most favorite products for Wizards of the Coast that time was the Forgotten Realms. The source book for the campaign world. Well, the source book was 3.0. But then most of the materials that came out for Forgotten Realms, like Magic of the World and all that, was 3.5.
Right.
And they never updated the 3.0 book.
Right.
So people that played Forgotten Realms, which was a big setting, they played outdated rules for like the next 5-6 years until they came out with a new edition of D&D.
Right.
Mm-hmm. That's true. Sarah says, I love the 100 lists. I never thought of doing that before, but now that I'm writing, it makes sense and is helpful. By the way, Brian, when is your Conspiracy 100 list coming out? Hint, hint. Well, let's move on now after that question. Good question, Sarah. Thank you for asking that. Russell Allen says, y'all keep it down here, and here I'm role-playing again. Okay, cool. We'll try to keep the dice rolling down to a minimum. I would always take my now this is a great statement here from Rick Bradley. I would always take there we go. I would always take my older brother's Crown Royal bags and use them as dice bags. Can we get an amen that Royal Crown bags are probably the best commercial bags you can buy for dice?
They are. Alcoholics have been supporting our hobby forever.
When we lived in Illinois, one of the happiest days of my life before I left was we went out and somebody apparently had gone to the liquor store down the street, and sitting in the middle of my yard was one of the large size Crown Royal bags.
Nice.
And it's like, thank you, Jesus.
Right.
It's like
early.
Yeah, it's like, yeah, exactly. I thought, man, I don't think I've been this good, but I'm taking it.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, let's see. Russell Allen, you have to run to the Brawless Troll. Run to the Brawless Troll. Run or fight. Oh, Russell,
I'm staying.
Yeah, what's the stats for a camera? Anyway, Carl Wisman, roll the 7 if I'm reading these dice correctly. Well, it could be, unless depends on what game. I'd rather roll.
Was a 4-sider you're not?
Yeah, that's true. That's true. But if you have a 100-sider, you're really screwed. Anyway, Carl, you have to pick. Okay, there's something wrong with Russell Allen tonight. Again,
That's where the Crown Royal went. Russell drank it.
yeah, that's where he's getting the Crown Royal bags, I think. And Carl Witzman does make some sense here. He says he needs to look into these 100 lists, I think. Again, amen.
If you're interested, I'll comp you some. I mean, I got over 700 products. I love giving that first time free and making an addict.
That's right.
There we go. It's a time-honored tradition. Like comics and drugs. And Patty Dunford says, oh, definitely. And Rick Bradley raises his hand for Michaela Jade, our author friend, to go to drivethroughrpg.com.
Yeah, not just as a buyer, but as a participant. Definitely go see what they do there. I mean, put your stuff out there. The world's big enough.
Yeah.
I want to say that to Sarah, too, that just mentioned. I mean, if you're interested in dipping your toes, Fishwife is a very open, brand. I love to work with new writers. Dan loves to work with them, too.
Yep.
Very cool. And now Patty Dunford says, Dave, I'd like to see you do some stuff I could use with my bunch on Roll20.
Patty, private message me after this and tell me what you need.
There we go. And I'm going past a lot of Russell Allen's comments for obvious reasons. If there's one person that's going to drag this show down, it's going to be me. Got that? It's me.
That's right.
I've got the experience, people. I get a +10 on all my rolls for Folderol. And Mina Merkowitz says, I use Reaper for music recording too. It's great. All right. We have an endorsement. And and here's something else I've taken up doing. You do it once, you're branded forever. Brian isn't holding up a copy of GURPS Select tonight. That's the new thing we do, that if you really like the book, you lick it. Yeah, I did that last week, and now I'm there you go. See?
Oh my goodness.
Yeah, and
I got nothing to lick.
That's right. And remember, folks, I will sell you a copy of any of my books. Skyman's $20. Santa Sign is $20. I will sell you those books for that price, and for an extra $5, I won't lick any of them. Okay, just letting you know. Let's see, here we go. Oh, Rick Bradley has a good comment. I have both a Robotech and Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles RPG with the GURPS rules. I love them. That's great. That is so cool. I always love running into somebody that's like collected stuff from like back in my heyday, when I was collecting a lot of stuff. And here we go. Russell Allen says, the room begins to fill with a green mist. It appears to begin melting everything it touches. Time's running out. Choose again quickly.
Different room. Different room.
There you go. Oh my God, this is a good one. Bill Sarton says a wedding RPG would bring a whole new meaning to Dungeon Master.
I think Dungeon Master would be like the friend that hooked him up. That's what Dungeon Master would be, the gateway hookup person.
There you go. Roll a d20 for blame.
Right.
There we go.
And Divorce Lawyers, a collectible card game.
Now, there we go. The inevitable sequel, right? There we go. That's good marketing there. And then Single Guy, the game. You could have roles for the particular dating app, for instance. Make your Tinder roll a D100, and may God have mercy on your soul.
Oh my God, the wrong picture went up.
There we go. See, this stuff writes itself, people. City Cap says, what do you find most helpful in a game system?
Clarity, simplicity.
Yeah.
And I would say the ability to let the player have some flexibility with what they want to do with their character. And you can do it with a simple system.
Right.
Yeah, that's true. That's very true.
It's got to be clear, though. I mean, if you can't understand what's going on, if someone's been modeling the pages with a bunch of, stuff so that it's real cool looking, but you can't read it, or someone's using the thesaurus criminally, and there's too many words, and lots of flavor, but Lord knows I can't get a handle on the noodle that's supposed to be the game system or the game engine. So clarity really is, for me, key. Clarity and simplicity are hand in hand.
Yeah.
Everything else can go out the window, but if I can understand it, and if I can play it easily and teach somebody else within 5 minutes, you've sold me on it.
Yeah, that's true. That's true. I feel that the fewer house rules that you need in order to make a game workable, that's a
Sure.
sign of a good game to me, at least.
I agree.
Let's see. Syndicate follows up with, "What do you find most irksome about game systems? Have there been a game mechanic that just made you like say, okay, I'm never playing this game again, or you want to write your own version of it, or what?"
Games that are trying to be clever with their game system, like I don't like dice pools. I just think that that is an idea that a dice manufacturer said, "Hey, let's go half and half on this, right? And make sure everybody's got a big dice pool. I make more sales."
Yeah.
You know, I think just game mechanics that are trying to be clever, but don't necessarily make the game any better. That's what I don't like.
Well, and I can say on the dice pool, like it's usually done with 6-sided dice,
Yeah,
and after you've thrown in that six-sider, you're really not getting any more randomness because you're just kind of branching off in the other multiplication tables. You know, your one 6-sider can't compete against 7 6-sided dice because you can't even equal.
right.
So you run into this situation where you're just kind of off the board anyway.
Yeah,
Yeah. Well, that was one thing I didn't like about Champions. I had issues with the combat system too, but there were some circumstances, especially in a long running game, where you had like literally handfuls of dice for
right,
your big ass attack.
right.
And like I have huge hands, and I had like some of my rolls. I had one character I'd been playing for over 10 years, and I couldn't hold all the dice it took for him to do.
Our roll bag was full.
It's exactly. Yeah, if I dropped it on my foot, I'd probably be walking away limping. Oh, I
For you
remember.
non-gamers, this and this is what you had to resort to.
Right.
Hey, I predate that one. This is what we had. You know what I'm saying? We're talking stone knives and clubs here. Rick Bradley says, "One of my favorite superhero games was the classic Marvel RPG by TSR back in the 80s. They have a fan site that is still making up things for it." That's
Yeah.
yeah.
I love that. That is a great system.
It was. I liked it. I kind of like DC role playing game too. That's one I played very frequently. Yeah,
Right.
that was a good one, and I like the Marvel superhero because like you said, Dan, you know, it's like it was simple to learn,
Right.
and you know you didn't need like a
With percentiles, you added your modifiers, and you had these areas that you're trying to hit. If you hit, you know, if it was a problem, you could knock that down a couple levels. But other than that, it was pretty straightforward. You know.
Oh yeah.
When you look smashed, it was pretty obvious. You know.
And let's see. Okay, here we go. And Patty Dunford, a woman after my own heart, says, "Of course you can still collect dice." Oh, hell to the yes, you can. And Bill Sargent says,
"Is a skull." So that's...
"Oh, that's classic." If it weren't for dead air, I would run to the next room and get mine. I have a fishing tackle box that is like straining to restrain all my dice. So, okay. Bill Sargent says, "RPG Geek question: What was the most expensive dice either of you had made?"
Actually, I've never made dice.
You need dice.
Or what's the most expensive? Well, let me change that up a little. What is the most expensive and or the most unique die you own?
I was going to suggest that. Go ahead, Dan.
Dragon dice. Those were expensive. I own some of them. You know. It's me.
I like your lighting, Dan. That's cool.
Thank you. I thought I'd just try something different.
You know. Dave?
I had a set that was made out of, I think, like pale jade.
Oh,
wow.
nice.
The problem was they were smaller. They were manufactured on the smaller scale and not very accurate. And then my wife one year got me a set of Tiger Eye 6-siders. But I mean, I actually just like weird, cool dice more than anything. And some of the off-brand stuff is some of the coolest colors and patterns. I actually recommend Wiz Dice. You can see their logo on here. they come out with some sets, and you basically can get like 20 sets of polyhedral dice for $20. That's like $1 a set for polyhedral. You go to like Chessex or another company, you're paying $7 a set.
Yeah.
And I mean, some of their colors are crazy cool.
Yeah.
And stuff. So you can find them on Amazon. I don't work for the company, so I'm not endorsing, like say like Smith Inc. or Desktop Mini Maker. I don't actually work for the company, but I do recommend Wiz Dice.
Very cool. Very cool. And welcome, Philip.
Phil's a local.
Okay, and I'm going to screw up that last name. McRaft?
McRaft.
Okay, I was close. I got most of it. Phil, glad to see. Yes, you see Fezzes because Fezzes are cool. Anyway, welcome to the show, my friend. And here we go. Now, here's a good one. Rick Radley, what is your most memorable RPG moment in any game?
Well, I just roll mastered a GURPS Old West horror game about 2 or 3 weeks ago, and I guess the moment when someone was shooting at somebody, and the light came in through the holes in the walls of the saloon and started hitting the vampires. That was interesting. That was a moment.
Nice.
Kind of like from Dusk Till Dawn, only in a Western setting.
Yeah.
That's me.
Dave?
I guess probably twice. Dave Ford was the game master at the time, and first time was my Ranger Argo. We had came across a Manicore, and he dropped a hint. He said, this Manicore is actually not really evil. He's kind of dumb acting. So I said, I want to do a diplomacy roll. And I talked to Manicore. I said, do you like your owner? Not really.
Owner.
Would you like to come with us? I've got a nice cave on my property, because he allowed my character, instead of, say, buying magical stuff, which was what I should have done, I actually bought property. I was like, you want to come guard our property? I'll put you up with a nice cave, make sure you're well fed. Suddenly we had a Manicore at our party. And then there was another time, one of my druids, there was an Utah, which is one of my most favorite creatures as well, and Dan recently drew one, busted up from the sewers, and it was hungry, and we had just walked out of this warehouse that was vats full of like rotting fish, and I'm like, friend, no need to go crazy on the street. There's some trash down the road you can eat. Let me do a diplomacy check. We passed. Utah just went on walking down the street. We didn't have to fight her or nothing. They just doled out the experience points. He's like, you beat it with conversation. There you go.
Nice.
Now, Dave, how do you say that name?
I call it Utah. I don't even know how it's pronounced.
Okay, I call it Achiyuk. So, I don't know. Yeah, that's weird.
When I was a kid, I called it a gutta. I've got an Appalachian accent, and we're not exposed to new words a lot. So when I see them, I just kind of decide, well, that's how the word's going to be said.
I just want to say, 1 hour, 42 seconds, you finally brought up your accent. So, it's that long to do.
Nobody's brought up Donna porn tonight yet.
The night is young, my friend. The night is young.
Yeah.
But we did mention the accent in the pre-show.
Right.
Behind the scenes that no one's allowed but us to see, mostly for blackmail reasons. And Carl Winston says, I worked in the mental health field for years, Dave Woodrum. So, yeah. And then he hangs around with me. Go figure. And Cindy Kemp wants to know your funniest DM story.
As a DM?
As a DM.
No funny ones as a DM per se. As a game player, though, I was playing Jesse the Body Ventura as a cyberpunk mercenary. I had been game mastering for my group for 5 years straight. I wanted to play. I wanted the game master to make a game for me. Okay. Basically, what I wanted was, my character was gay, and so what he was looking for the climactic moment was, I wanted to stand in a in a Mad Max type setting with a giant junkyard mech in front of me. I'm standing with my chain gun and Ralph Macchio wrapped around my legs, a la Conan style. I wanted that moment to happen, right? That's all I wanted. Let's get to that point. I want to have that Photoshop, that photo moment, where my character was in his glory. He put us on a spaceship with horse aliens, and I was like, I'm going to kill you. That's not what I did. Okay? I had a concept here, but, my wife was playing. He had her character sitting in a knitting circle on this spaceship. Okay, my wife's going to kick his ass. What am I do? I mean, it was so misogynistic in a way that was reprehensible. I don't know, man. Anyway,
I blame Carol Baskins. I blame Carol Baskins.
Okay.
Oh my God.
Oh yeah, that was. I got that story. That game has so many stories to it. That's just. It just reminded me of how bad a person can be a game master when they're not at all ready to be a game master. I mean, you got to want to do it. You've got to have a lot of different skills, and I don't mean even hone skills, but just that you are open to the suggestion of doing specific things in a specific way, And this person was a sow bug rolled up, and was not going to give it up. It was horrendous on so many levels.
Oh my God, that's Dave?
Mine's short, believe it or not. I hate game mastering myself. I'm very bad at it. Like Dan said, there's just some people that don't have the skill set. And a lot of it's for me, like after I design all week, I'd like to just be the player for a change, which is one of the reasons why when I do have more time for evenings free, I'm going to eventually try to get somebody local that would be interested in running some of my concepts and stuff, because I'd like to just sit there and play and watch it get torn apart.
Dave, we'll play. All right? We'll play.
I need to play.
But I think you need a game with me is what I think you need.
Yeah.
There you go.
You'd be kicking me out by 9:30.
Oh, I'm listening to this. I'm reminded of I was in part of a GM collective. Yeah. Hint: never get into a GM collective, especially when the others meet more often than you do. And so it was my turn to run like a 3-week arc, and they gave me a list of the things that they voted on they didn't want me to do, like all the weird stuff I like doing. No time travel, no bringing back old characters, etc. And I said, then I quit. And they said, no, you can't quit. You got to do the next 3 weeks. So I did a scenario that included everything they did not want me to do. And at the end of it, they had fun. But at the end of it, I said, I announced my resignation, and no one said no that time.
Right. Who would tell a game master, not telling a writer, don't write what you want to write. Don't game what you want to game. Well, what's a game? What I don't like? Oh, you're going to love that game. You're going to love that book I write,
Yeah. Come on. Someone should not be told no. It just creates a reaction. So I know that's hard to believe I would do such a thing. So anyway, Cindy Kemp, which of your game creations are you the most proud of? And I'm going to broaden that. Is there a scenario, is there a game that you've written that's your favorite, or, a character?
Well, for me, Battle of the Bands was my first baby. I had it before I had my actual son. So, that in its purest form is my favorite game. Yeah, that's an okay version. Okay. Thank you for Dave for being my shill on this show. I was never a good self promoter.
I'll work on you all day long. We'll work on you, man.
You know what? I'm proud. Everything I've done, I'm proud of. I mean, Dave showed a card game there I've got called Keep Your Distance, which is a game about running away from zombies. He has a zombie game. But you really do get a feeling of being in a zombie world with that game. And it's a numbers game. But I'm proud of everything I've ever put out. Yeah, everything I've put out, I'm proud of. So
Good.
they're all my babies. You know,
Good.
love them equally.
There you go, Dave. What about you?
I would say probably, I guess, of all would be. I mean, no, I'm really proud of some of my freelance projects like Citizen Report for Fantasy Games Unlimited with B&B, and then the Roller Girls for Jeff and Jack's Monkey House Games. I guess my absolute that I'm most proud of is Exiles of the Wicked Maze. I've sold, actually, with physically, making money, I've sold, I think, over 2,000 or 1,500 copies of it, and it just being a download. It was also the first project that me and Dan actually worked on together. And Dan talked about earlier about being a friend and giving a good discount if he gets to know you. I'm not going to disclose the amount. It was an insane amount. He practically did the project for nothing. We don't talk about that. But the thing is about it, he really helped me take that game off with the cover that he did and all the interior art. And that's the one that Alan Varney had, approached me there about a month or two ago and wanted it in particular in that bundle of holding. And that's where a lot of that 1,000 and some came from. And I mean, that game has earned me, a few $1,000s to date. So where a lot of my other products are just, small, quick turnarounds. I'd say Exiles of the Wicked Maze is probably my favorite. And for everybody, it uses a 20-sided die, which you can buy at most hobby stores. You play it by yourself. It's a solo game. You print it off, and it's good when there's a power outage. So there you go. You don't have to have a game master, nothing. It's a complete solo-driven game.
There you go. There you go. Rick Bradley says, yes, I hate when I get railroaded on an RPG. I know when I run a game, it's mainly a bit of an outline that can be done in a few different places. And if it's something that definitely needs to happen at a certain place, you've got to get the characters you want to go there. That is true. That's good game mastering there as far as I'm concerned.
That's it. Don, if you're working with a 3x5 card and you've got a few notes on there, all roads lead to Rome. So if you, in most game things, this happens at this location. In my game, this happens at any location I want it to happen because wherever we're going, you're going to meet that guy, or you're going to see that thing, or something's going to happen, or whatever it is. That's a perfect way of gaming.
Yep.
Keep it open, keep it fresh, so that way, because as a game master, if I'm just running by the written word, and it's not exciting me or it's nothing new to me, why am I here? You can play a solo game that way, but if I'm involved and things are happening that are new to me, that are exciting me, I'm jazzed. I'm invigorated, and then you're going to be the same way because we're going to feed off each other. So, no, I think we're fine.
Very good. Stacy Smith-Castile has a question for you both. What is an early gaming experience that influences you to this day?
I want to say a quick hi to Stacy. That's another friend from way back. No, personally.
You have all friends here.
I know. I did that to you.
And he knew me before he knew you. Sorry. You learn to make friends here, Dan. That's what I've had to do.
Yes, sir.
Yeah. So anyway, Stacey's question: is there an early gaming experience that influences you to this day?
Yes.
Okay, Dave.
My cousin, in his swan song and being the game master for me and his brother, he was getting really tired of it because we were the murder hobos that defined murder hobos before there were murder hobos. We had fought a pit fiend, and the pit fiend had I remember it's a pit fiend, but maybe it wasn't. It had teleportation powers, and it teleported a rock into me, and I died. And I was like, what, a 15th level something, and I freaked out, as we all do, and I flatly rejected it, and then, a few days later, I got over it and understood why I did it, and then I stayed away from gaming for about 2 or 3 years. And when I finally got back into it, I got back into it with a head of understanding what the concept of role-playing was. It wasn't just a power trip of me going to every orc town in a Judges Guild map book, and killing everybody there to get all the +1 swords I could to fill up the vault in the back of the castle of +1 swords, right? And understood that it was about a story, and it was about characters, and it was about real life moments. The other moment I had to this day, my son wanted to role play. And I said, that's fine, we'll play. So we played a game. It was a zombie game. And I said, you're there and you've got a gun and you're in a house. You're in a house, not necessarily your house. And you look outside and there's movement outside, kind of a shambly gate movement thing. What do you do? He goes, well, I put the gun to the window and shoot it. I go, okay. We look out there and he sees something out there, not quite looking like a zombie that you've shot. He's dead, For the rest of that game, everyone in that town's going, have you seen Fred? The guy who made candy for kids? The guy who used to help me around the house. He has a limp, kind of. My son's like 8. My son is 8, and he is crying. He is crying. No. When the game was over, I told him, I said, that was a lesson that everything you do as an action, as a reaction, means something. Meaning, and I mean, to this day, he's 16. To this day, he's like, Dad, you asshole, right? But then when we play a game, I said, you want to play a game? He's like, of course. We play a game. I said, what do you think? He says, I never expected that. And he enjoys the shit out of it. But I guarantee you, he doesn't walk up and put a gun to somebody and kill it before he understands who he's doing it to. He's Fred. Everyone loved Fred. He was so mortified. And I said, it's just a made-up character. But he understood, and that was important because I think that if you got that early, you bypass that whole power trip thing and get right to the point of that you are part of the world. So be a part of the world. Don't just think you can just lawnmower your way through it and just kill everything in sight. So, anyways,
a lot of it for me has been really really clicked for me in my memory. It's hard for me to really single out any one particular episode. And that's the great thing about role-playing games, and when they're done right and they're not done by the nose, you can take some of the most simplest moments and actually walk away from it. And a lot of times, as a writer, it can really affect the work that you do later in a positive way. It's the same, basically like I talked about earlier, where we had that one merchant trader. After that, I was all about, let's start making villagers interact more. Let's start having villagers have an economic need for the adventure.
A backstory.
Yeah. And so I wouldn't really want to top one experience over another. But then I've also haven't had the really nice traumatic ones that Dan has pushed on his son.
I'm a bastard sometimes.
But just went to Virginia and been on my caseload.
Yeah, but a lot of people overlook the educational aspects of role-play gaming for younger people. I had a friend who he was teaching his 8-year-old son math and cooperation and getting along with adults through his D&D 3.0. I'm the one who taught him that my character didn't have to outrun the bugbear. My character just had to outrun the 8-year-old kids. And
That's right.
Yeah. Well, and I guess what I could add is when Mike Walton was my dungeon master, and again, Mike Walton, the horror comic never dies. He used to be, like when he would get the game together. And of course, everybody was always, like fighters and all that. And here I was, this crazy illusionist, but I knew I was weak. We was in this inn one night, and there was a slithering tracker on the floor. It was yet another dungeon magazine adventure. I was the biggest coward. I had an idea of what it was. Everybody else thought it was a vampire. I'm like, why don't we pay attention to the little slimy spot thing that's crawling across the floor? Because everybody kept getting paralyzed. Right. My character climbed up on an end table. I'm like, I don't think this thing can climb. And I was prodding at it with a stick, my staff, every time I went by, looking like a complete coward. And I figured Mike's going to just annihilate my character for being such a weakling.
Right.
I fared the best out of everybody.
Right.
Because I was doing pretty much the one thing that can do that guaranteed survival. I was being a big sissy on the table, prodding at it with a stick.
Oh, that's funny. Now, we've been flashing some of the comments we've gotten here because we are closing in on 2 hours, and I don't.
My fault.
No.
My fault. It's your fault.
No. There is one thing I need to show you guys. We have another banner here. It's going to come across the screen real soon. This is some of the hashtags we have for this show. And I believe it's going to be one of the first things. Yes, the first thing, if you see it right now, hashtag, it's Brian's fault. Okay, so it's on me. All right, you guys get a like a pass this time. Okay, all right. Okay. So end of guilt. So anyway, let's go back to the comments. And I'm sorry we have to race through all of your great comments because you guys have got so many. Cindy's dice has disappeared, and fences are cool. Yes, they are, except right now because I don't have the fan blowing directly on me. Rick Bradley says, as a game master, you have to be prepared to throw away at least half of your notes for a game because of those damn players. It's the same thing when you run a talk show, too. But it helps to have honestly, great questions from you guys, seriously. And Patty is having flashbacks to Flaming Dill Ships. Oh, dear. And quick question here. Which computer RPG is your fave?
Don't play computer RPGs.
Good man. How about you, Dave?
Probably Mountain Blade Bannerlord Warband, which is more of a strategy game. It's not really a role-playing game.
Yeah, I play Warcraft too.
Yeah, there's no real role-playing, in my opinion. I hate to say that in an online console game.
Yeah. And Cindy continues, have you seen the books that have you read a bit and then roll a die? It's kind of like the old choose your own adventure books. Yeah, I recently picked up. Yeah.
I have a bunch of those, yeah.
Those are awesome.
They are. They really are. And Rick Bradley says, I'll be your friend, Dan. Now, Rick, you can't threaten him like that. You can't threaten him like that, okay? Anyway, and okay, here we go. Rick asks, what favorite villain you have either made or used or played against? And this is going to be the last question.
I had created a character for a cyberpunk game for a friend of mine who had come down to stay for a weekend. He's the artist and writer for the Creatures of the Night books for GURPS, Scott Maykrantz. I created a character called the Donut Driver. No, okay, forget that. That's not the story I want to say. Favorite villain I had game mastered a game at a friend's house where we gamed ourselves. We GURPS ourselves. And the guy who came to the door, the pizza delivery guy, was a serial killer. And the whole night was dealing with that serial killer at that house. And that was probably one of the most memorable villains and games I had ever run.
Beautiful. What about you, Dave?
Believe it or not, my mind went blank. I mean, there's been several, but I can't actually think of one particular one, that is memorable enough to really, because a lot of times the villains, I try to do the reverse of most popular American media, where the villains are really the coolest. I mean, come on, Trapjaw's cool as heck, Zartan, Destro, Cobra Commander, and Skeletor, and all the heroes are boring as crap. So a lot of the times in my gaming, I try to inspire to make my characters more cool, and the villains, we're going to kill them anyway. No point in making them really creative. And that's also why I don't Dungeon Master or GM, because I really flaw, that's a flaw for me.
Well, you can practice. Get your own morning show and run it for about, say, 3.5 months. That'll give you some experience in thinking fast and on your feet, even if you don't know how to use StreamYard all that well. Rick Bradley says, I think what everybody is thinking, this has been awesome, guys. I'm
just sorry, I wiped out a lot of people's comments from over talking.
Oh, no, no, no. And to give you an idea, I judge the success of any given episode of this show by how far behind I am in the comments. At one point, we were 1 solid hour behind the comments. So that's a credit to you guys. You guys have been fascinating. You really have. And we haven't even scratched the surface of what you guys do as far as writing. But let's get some business done for you guys. Yeah. Now, you got a Kickstarter coming up. Am I remembering correctly?
Yeah, we do. We don't have a set date yet. I'll let Dan talk a little bit more about it.
Well, yeah, it's going to be. Well, it's been happening a lot on Kickstarter recently. A lot of Thundar the Barbarian clones.
Mm-hmm.
Ours is kind of the same thing, only it's through our minds. And what we're going to do is we're going to come out at the same time with 2 adventures, 2 first-level adventures, each one separate within the same world. We'll have a map of the world that they're both in. They'll have moments that will be connective to each other. If that does well, then we're going to come out with 2 more adventures for a little higher, as you progress in the game. Both separate adventures. Dave will write one, I'll write one. They'll have connective moments in there. And then we're going to keep doing a few of those. So we'll see how that turns out.
And all right. Show real quick. We were going to actually have, in addition to the games and stuff, 3D print model files.
Right.
Dan pushed me again. I usually don't do organics, but he pushed me to actually do there's a little bit of a rough spot on this as a test model. He pushed me to do like a sort of mutant slug creature. Then we've got the evil, wicked AI, or maybe not so wicked. Who knows?
Right.
For mine, some little robots for mine, little nuclear reactor thing or storage tank for Dan's. And we're going to have more of these, particularly as the Kickstarter hits certain stretch goals. And it's just our way for people with 3D printers that you'll get a little bit more else. I mean, you'll actually get the real miniatures, once you 3D print them, of the new creatures, robots, and so forth that we will be introducing in the modules.
We'll be doing that. The game, you'll get basically the adventures. You'll be getting new monsters. You'll get some non-player characters. You're going to be getting weapons. All the new stuff that comes with adventures. You're also going to get battle maps for each adventure. A lot of battle maps will come with that. So the concept is we want to give kind of like what you normally get in a box.
Yeah.
But you're getting electronically, so you're getting a chance to make the miniatures that come in there, battle map that you use those miniatures on, hopefully an interesting story setting that is open enough and with enough variations going on there that not only do you play the adventure there, but there will be some side things going on that you might want to go in, which will draw you into each other's adventure. And you can do Dave's first, you can do mine first. It really doesn't matter. So the concept is that we've got this really vivid world with all these different areas of strife going on and different kinds of strife, and yet there will be connections to it, so to a much larger, and hopefully at the very end we'll have a couple of really great climactic campaign adventure end moment that we'll do for these. So, and it's very much a Thundar the Barbarian, a magical, fantastic, post-apocalyptic, free-for-all fun fest. So
very cool.
We even have music with Dan doing vocals.
Nice.
Yeah.
Very cool.
Yeah,
very cool. I love it. Now that leads me to one question. When this Kickstarter is about a week or 2 out, you are going to use the Rising Tide page and my personal page to promote it, aren't you guys? This is your
I'll definitely order and solicit, and yeah.
All right, because I agree with what Rick Redley said. You guys have been awesome tonight. I think we've only scratched the surface of creating and for games and such, and hopefully we haven't scared you off, and maybe we can have you back sometime.
Sure,
I'd love to.
All right, cool.
He's got more room. We can do this.
Yeah, there we go. All right. Well, I'll tell you what. I'm going to mute you guys for a minute. I've got some business. And then we'll hang out after the show here. But otherwise, we are going to. Well, first of all, also I want to put up a card here. Don't forget Dan Smith's Patreon page. Also, don't forget his DeviantArt page, the gallery that's going across, the address is going across your screen right now. Also, support him, Dave Woodrum, at Drive-Thru RPG, and there is the link for Fish Wife Games. And again, guys, thank you very much. Appreciate your being here. And I'm going to mute you guys, and then I'm going to take over the screen because it's my show. Anyway, hope you all enjoyed Dave Woodrum and Dan Smith. And yes, we will have them back pretty soon. Thank you all for your excellent questions. Appreciate everything, all the attention you paid to them. Also, please check out the web sites, check out what they do, and support these guys, all right? They are Nevermorians. They've been adopted, whether they want to be or not. And we will have them back. Thank you again for your great questions. Also, don't forget, my site is risingtide.pub, where you can sign up for my free monthly newsletter. Also, use the other hand, Brian, Rising Tide Publications on Facebook, where you can find new content at least 3 or 4 times every day. And we'd like to thank everyone that's watching from YouTube, Big River Comic Con, OnCon Experience, and my own personal page. And Patty Dunford, y'all have a great evening too. All right, and we hope everyone watching has a great evening. Tell everyone you know about this program. We'll be back next week at 8 p.m., 7 p.m. Central, and next week's subject will be inspirational writing. How does one's faith influence one's writing, or does it? And we will be joined by a trio of really super writers. Kathy Jackson, who writes romance with a little bit of spice every now and then. Tyrone Tony Reed Jr., who has a superhero book. And, of course, the one, the only, Mr. David Atkins. They'll all be joining us 1 week from tonight, and we hope you have a great evening. We'll be back tomorrow morning on Nevermind the Furthermore. And thank you to everyone that visited us tonight. We hope you make us a habit, and we'll see you next week. Always remember, stay smart, stay safe, wash your damn hands, and never apologize for being awesome. All right, we're going to find the next thing we got to run here, and then we will talk to you next week. Take care, everyone. Have a good evening.
Thank you for tuning in to Clever Title Pending, a Rising Tide Publications and Brian K. Morris production. A member of Comic Book Advocating Network and sponsored by GeekInsider.com. Become part of our show with sponsorship and advertising opportunities. For details, contact advertising at GeekInsider.com or visit podcast.geekinsider.com. The Geek Insider podcast is available on your favorite app, so please hit the follow button and share it out to your friends. Because if you don't, you might have to turn in your geek card.